retrograde. So, welcome to the Lunar Magic Forecast of November. If you don't know me yet, I am Patricia Banassi and I am an astrologer and business mentor. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through what is going to happen in November, what energies to prepare for, how to schedule everything, because we are in for quite a ride. Hello, Susan. Good to see you here. Awesome. So let me just start off with saying this month has really a few different types of flavors. So we have the beginning of the month, which like up until like half of the month is there's a lot of movement. There are a lot of things happening. There is a lot of processing going on. And then during the end of the month, we have a little bit of relief before at the end of the month, we have like a peak going up again, which will be very interesting. Now, we finished last month, October, on a full moon, which happened to be on Halloween. So that was an interesting combination of the two. So that was a full moon in Taurus. So we kind of come off of that peak that we have, and now we are in November. Now, tomorrow, Mercury is going out of retrograde, woohoo! Which is usually some time for a party because we're finally out of that sort of weird phase. But what happens with Mercury is, so it goes into, when it's a retrograde, it appears to be moving backwards. Now, because of this happening, there are certain points in the zodiac that it touches 3 times. So first, Mercury is going direct. That was at the beginning of October. It was going direct. So it moved over certain degrees of Libra, then it went into Scorpio. Then it went retrograde in Scorpio. It retrograde back. So it touched upon those points it had already visited before. Then it moved back into Libra, and then tomorrow, Mercury is going to station direct again. So again, it will touch those points of Libra again before it starts to move into Scorpio. Now that means that the reason why the Mercury retrograde has such an introspective and reflective energy is because it literally goes back to where it already was, and then when it stays in direct, it will cross it again. That's why you might have heard of the Mercury shadow, or the retrograde shadow, is when Mercury is touching those points it had already been in. And then after that is finished, that's when we're out of the shadow, out of the retrograde shadow. That's when we actually start to feel things pick up again. Now it's an interesting event because tomorrow is also the US election. Now, judging on everything that's happening, it will most likely not result in an outcome right away. It probably takes a while before there will be an outcome, before things will start to settle down, because we all know Mercury is the planet of communication, and when Mercury goes direct, it's sort of in a standstill first. It moves very slow. Mercury normally moves quite fast, but after the retrograde, it's kind of at the standstill point, which is tomorrow, which is when the US elections are. So it will be interesting. I don't think that there will be a result soon. I'm not going to do any predictions whether it's going to take a week or 2 weeks or a few days, but I don't think it will happen right away. So what I mentioned is that Mercury goes over these points 3 times. So it will be very good for you to look back at the beginning of Mercury retrograde as we start moving forward, that you revisit those experiences and look at how you can learn from that. Susan said, just hoping that my vote makes it by then. It probably will. But this might be maybe a very close tie, or it will be that certain things will be announced that they can't be counted because procedures went wrong. I mean, Mercury's really about technology, so there might be some technological screw ups, and that's why maybe some votes will not be counted or something will happen. Um, but it will be interesting, that's for sure. I think 2020 is an interesting year in general, um, because we've never been in control. But this year, we're um, really feel how much we're not in control and how much we are at the mercy of everything that's going on. And now it is our personal responsibility to go with that, to allow ourselves to go with that feeling and to allow ourselves to go with the flow, even though the flow is not really flowing. But you will, I will explain a little bit more what is happening this month. So on the 12th of November, we have the third and final Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. So this one happened because Pluto and Jupiter, both of them went into retrograde, and that's why they meet up for the third time when they're both out of retrograde again. Now, Pluto and Jupiter, that really had the quality of the first transit was really about wrapping cycles up, seeing the final the final end of certain cycles. That was in April. I just had to think because that was a full pregnancy moment at that time, so I wasn't fully aware of everything. So that was April. Then in June, actually a few days after my daughter was born, was the second conjunction, and that was really much more about learning the lessons, see where you have been, and then trying to form ways to move forward. And this third time when they come together is really about the integration and moving forward. So Jupiter is really the planet of good luck, is the planet of expansion, prosperity as well, and Pluto is about rapid transformation, like really just burn it all down and start again. So it's really like a sort of good luck sign that you can actually start to move through the layers that you've worked on the past few months. Let me just quickly check the comments because my computer is obviously doing something wrong, doing something weird. This guy is still Mercury retrograde. Susan mentioned that her vote is still in trans. Yes, well, keep our fingers crossed that it will arrive on time. So this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is really an invitation for you to integrate all that you have learned, and not just from April to now, but really from what has happened this year. In April, we were in the middle of March, April is like the start of the pandemic in most places. That's when we really started to feel the difference, to feel the impact that it was all going to have, and the realization that it was probably going to last a bit longer than we hoped. Hi, Mariana. Good to see you. Awesome. So that will happen on November 12th. Then on November 13th, we have Mars going direct. Mars doesn't go direct very often. Roughly every 2 years, it goes into retrograde. So what happened from September till November 13th, when Mars was in retrograde, it really put a damper on our passion, on our drive, on really on the way that we put our work out into the world. So it was a little bit harder to find the passion, to find the drive to actually do things. Now, that doesn't mean that nobody done anything from September till now, till November 13th, but it was harder to motivate yourself. It was harder to find the drive. Now, when Mars goes out of retrograde, there is this moment where we can, it can kind of get a little bit aggressive, because Mars in Aries, which is the ruler of Aries, when Mars is in Aries and goes direct again, there is this quality of aggression, this quality of frustration when things aren't moving fast enough. But the same thing with Mercury retrograde coming out of it, there is this slower move. There is this standstill. It's not instantly going to move much faster. So you have to allow yourself to go out of that slump, to go out of that almost like sticky, slimy situation, and then get moving forward and allow yourself that space to make that transition into the energy picking up. This is what I was mentioning at the beginning. The beginning of the month feels a little bit slower, feels a little bit stop and go, like energy, but not really, and I can go, but not really. So it's like kind of this like stop and go moment. Now then, when we have the new moon in Scorpio at 23 degrees Scorpio on the 15th of November, that is really planting new seeds, going into a new lunar cycle, but it's Scorpio. Scorpio is also a little bit like a trickster. It really goes into the deeper layers of your unconscious. It goes into the darker areas of life in general. It goes into the kind of taboo subjects. So it is really good time to look at how have you been honoring your own inner shadows? How have you been respecting your own maybe deep dark desires? I mean, Scorpio is just all about the deep dark stuff. So when you're setting your intentions, I really highly encourage you to go deep. Scorpio is a water sign, so really go deep into what it is that I desire. And maybe some of those desires aren't socially accepted, but this is the time to claim them. And that doesn't mean you have to get on your soapbox and shout it to the world, but this is a moment for you to claim it for yourself and to really know, like, this is what drives me, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I want to go forward with. So a new moon is always setting the intention, starting a new lunar cycle, and then for that lunar cycle, it's really good to focus on that energy. It's really good time to recommit to any occult practices. Like I, for instance, did my first hypnotherapy session last week. That's like really Scorpio thing. Go into the unconscious, uncover all of these layers, these patterns, these things that you have told yourself unconsciously and accepted that as truth. This is a time to peel back those layers, and especially around a new moon, that's when it's really, really potent to go into the energy, to go into your unconscious and to take out the things that don't serve you so that you are left with a blank canvas. Not blank, but with a cleaner canvas so you can put on the next layers. Now, 2 days later, on November 17th, we have the Uranus-Mercury opposition. Now, this one happened 3 times. It's similar with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Conjunction. That happened 3 times because of the retrograde. Now, the Mercury-Uranus opposition is also happening 3 times. This is the 3rd time it will be happening. So really look back at the previous times when this opposition happened. Like, what happened? What did you experience? Out of the top of my head, it was at the beginning of October and middle October. I'll put it in the comments because I don't have the dates in my head at the moment. But it's really good for you to look at what happened in that time. And again, because this happens in threefold, this is like, first we have the beginning where there is this tension between the communication, rapid transformation, because that is what Uranus is about. It's like rapid change. It's not like smooth things over and it's like, bam, we need to change right now and we're going to do it. And when you're not prepared for that change, it can really kind of take over. So now the 3rd time that is happening on November 17th, look back at the other 2 dates and then determine, like, what is it that needs to change? What is it that will change? Because Uranus is not about what needs to change, Uranus is about what is going to change. So there is going to be a change. How are you going to accept it? What are you going to do with it? Deal with it. So that's a good day to look into that. Then on the 21st, sorry, the sun will move into Sagittarius. That is when Sagittarius season starts. Now, Sagittarius is the archer. It is more positive. It's a much lighter energy than the Scorpio season we came out of, because Scorpio is about the darkness, is about exploring all of these taboo things, where Sagittarius is almost like, I'm just picturing this girl skipping through, it's almost like the Sound of Music kind of feeling, where like you have the hills and everything is alive. That's kind of the Sagittarius energy. It's much more upbeat. It looks on the positive side. There's also the flip side to that, where instead of only seeing the positive, we also need to have a reality check every once in a while, which can be a little bit tricky for Sagittarius because it likes to look on the bright side. Mariana says the rapid transformation most definitely resonates. Yes, and Uranus, like it just makes the transformation happen, whether you like it or not. It's with anything happens with Uranus, it's you better just accept that it's happening, because it is happening, and it is your response to it that will make the transit a growth moment or a struggle. It's like trying to swim upstream. You can do it. It might be good training. You might get very fit. But there are easier ways to do it. And that's the same with everything that happens with Uranus. You can fight Uranus all you want, but Uranus is going to give it to you anyway. So that's a good lesson for all of us. Then on the 28th, we have Neptune going direct in Pisces. Now, this is one of the last planets that's going out of retrograde. And Neptune is, we probably don't feel it that easily because Neptune moves very slow. So it's not like Mercury when it goes out of retrograde. It's like, boom, okay, we get it. Neptune is more subtle, is more gentle. Marianne said also it's a good thing, but shockingly intense and rapid indeed. Yes, it's not always pleasant. It can be shockingly intense, especially when you're in the moment. That can feel like really overwhelming. But luckily with Neptune going out of retrograde, that's more of a softer, a more gentle type of energy. So this is interesting, because when Neptune goes retrograde, it has more of because Neptune is the dreamer, is the going into the unconscious. It's like the daydreaming planet. When that one goes into retrograde, it actually becomes a little bit more realistic. Now, when it goes direct again, it will help us to tap deeper into our unconscious and intuition again. So we can feel our intuition being heightened, which is good. But at the same time, with Sagittarius season starting, this might also be a time where it's a little bit harder to see reality, because we're in this sort of dreamy state, this positivity vibe, like everything is happy, everything is good. So be mindful that you don't flip into overly optimistic and kind of ignore the signs where things go into too positive. Not too positive, but just ignore reality, basically. Then we close the month off again with a full moon. This full moon is also a lunar eclipse at 8 degrees Gemini. So we have the sun in Sagittarius and the moon in Gemini, and a lunar eclipse. So normally when there's a full moon, that's the peak moment of the lunar cycle. That's good for releasing, letting go, gratitude. But because there's a lunar eclipse, there is a little bit of a delay in how you can get the lessons from the full moon. So interestingly, Gemini is not the most patient sign. So you might feel like, oh, but I need to release this. I need to let this go. There is this desire to cut things out, but this is a good time to slow down a little bit more to pace yourself before you start to try to let it go. Because if you force things on this full moon, they're going to backfire. This is not a good time to make any major decisions. It's not a good time to force things to come to a conclusion just yet. Give it a few days before things can wrap up and come to a conclusion. Gemini rules our short range travel. It rules our connections with our siblings. It is connected to communication. So all of those things will be highlighted, but make sure that you don't force it to come to a close. This is our second last full moon of the year. So this is a time to wrap things up, but don't force it to wrap things up. You really need the space around this full moon to really gather your things, and then you can see all of the things that are happening. I'm just gonna take a sip of tea. So when it comes to how you're gonna look at this month as when to do what and how, the first 2 weeks of the month up until like 13th, 14th of November, that's a good time to reevaluate, to reassess, to look at the things you have done. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best time to do a launch. If you want to, you should wait at least until tomorrow when Mercury's out of retrograde, but better is to wait until the shadow is over, which will be at the end of November, but the most intense part will be over around the middle of the month. So then we have kind of this opportunity week, I would say, because when we have Neptune going direct and the full moon, so you have from, let's say, like the 20th till like the 28th. That's a good time if you want to launch things. If you will have a little bit more focus when the sun moves into Sagittarius on the 21st. That will be a time where you feel like energy is picking up. It's a fire sign, so it is more it's more outgoing, where Scorpio is more like retrieved. It's like the feeling deep sensations, where Sagittarius is like, let's go, let's have fun, let's just go out and have a ball. So that's more when the energy picks up. We also had a question come in about finances, like switching accountants. If you can, wait until at least like the 14th. That week from like the 14th till, I would say till the 20th, that's a good week, because before we go into Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is the positive one, it can kind of overlook some details, but if you go after that, it's also still okay. Like there's no disaster gonna strike. And that's what in general, with everything that I tell you today, with everything, with all the information, all the aspects, it is not for you to put your life on hold. It is not for you to say, oh my goodness, Mercury is retrograde, so I'm not going to do anything. Or, oh my goodness, Mars is still in retrograde, it's not direct. No, I cannot do this. It is using the energy and then go with it anyway. Like I once had a client who launched in a Mercury retrograde and was super successful because she knew what was going to happen. And for her, it fell in a really good house for her. So it actually enhanced her abilities to communicate. But there were some technical things that happened, but she was prepared for that. So she made sure that she had everything set up. She had help and backup. So if things went down, other people could help her with set it up again. It is really a mindset shift that you need to make, that when these intense moments are going to happen, and especially in December, it's going to wrap up. December is going to be even more intense. It's going to be even more climactic, I would say. But because we know that this is happening, we can ground ourselves, we can do the practices, and then still go forward. It's knowing it. It is, or a quote that I really love is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. this is a little bit like knowing the challenges that are going to come up, but doing it anyway because you know what the challenges are, when they're going to hit, and then you can start moving forward, because astrology is never an excuse to not do anything. It is a guidance. Mariana asks, is there any relief on the horizon after that? Yes. Not immediately. 2021 is not going to start off with this big like exhale. It will take a little bit because the aspects that are also happening in December are the slower moving planets. So those aspects, they kind of draw out quite a bit. And Uranus is gonna do his thing in 2021. And what I mentioned earlier, Uranus is really about rapid change. So there will be a series of rapid changes happening in 2021. But it's a different type of energy. Overall, 2021 is a little bit, there is relief, definitely. But there is this need for us to really look at what did I do and how I'm going to move forward. It's really like looking at the old and the new. Like it's really this balance of looking back, going forward, looking back, going forward. But in a lot of ways, 2021 will probably feel a lot less heavy, unless this end of the year we're going to have like a really big shit show, and then 2021 is going to be us picking up the pieces. So I'm not going to make any huge predictions on that, because I think what's going to happen in the next few months is going to be very critical, is how we're going to experience 2021. So if anybody has a question, if anything that they would like to know, if there's something that like I need to know this or that, or if you're watching the replay, comment below and I will happily answer your questions, because I'll be checking in after that. And if there are no further questions, then I'll be wrapping it up. If you are not on the list yet, on my email list, you can subscribe, and then you get the full PDF file with all of this information on it. You will automatically get it at the beginning of the month, so you can schedule ahead and make sure that you plan your things in alignment with everything that's going on. And Susan said, I find it comforting to hear about Uranus, honestly. Awesome. I am going to do a live masterclass probably at the end of this month or beginning of December, where I'm going to go into the energies of 2021. You can sign up for the wait list. I haven't put it up yet, but I'm putting it out there that I'm going to do this masterclass. I'm going to do it in Zoom, so you can all hang out there, ask questions, and really look at what is 2021 going to be like, and how can I set up my business so that I can go with all of these flows and waves and things. So hopefully we feel a little bit more grounded than we have felt in 2020. So if that's the last one, I am going to close the live, and if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'm wishing all of you a fantastic week. Bye bye.